those cool blue guys. Those guys are cool, actually, in the Balam field or whatever.
I don't remember
that little skeleton thing, and they're like,
oh yeah. They look like giant jellyfish.
Yeah.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Gaming Effect. We are here with part 2 of our multi-part series on Final Fantasy VIII. I am your co-host, Alex, aka Soldier First Class.
I am Corey, aka Dookie03.
And you almost choked on that one.
But
guys, we had a lot of fun making episode 1. We kind of went over a lot of the mechanics of the game and like the initial, I want to say maybe 2 hours of the game.
Yeah.
Since last episode, which was 2 weeks ago, when this airs, I have officially played through the entirety of Final Fantasy VIII. We're going to talk about a little bit of that here in a bit, but just know that I'm going into this a little bit more refreshed and can kind of point some things out that I noticed this playthrough, and some things that maybe Corey didn't notice, or maybe Corey did notice, and we can kind of break that down and talk about it. We're going to start short because we got a lot to get through. We left off on Dollet and the Dollet mission, and we didn't even get to the dance segment. So we've got a lot to get through today. So we are going to basically streamline this episode. Don't forget, you guys can catch us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, and my YouTube channel. And please rate and share on all of those platforms. We really appreciate it. You guys got us over 30 plays on this last episode, and we're really chugging along towards our first, I think, major milestone, which is 1,000 plays through Spotify and all streaming services. And we're about to 400, I believe, already in just what will be 9 episodes at this point when this episode releases. So we just want to say thank you, and that we really appreciate all the plays and all the shares, all the ratings, everything. They have been awesome.
Yeah, no doubt.
So before we get into the next topic, which is Final Fantasy VIII, let's promote your charity stream, because it's something that I donate to every year. I encourage other people to donate to it every year, and it's in honor of your friends. So give us a little details and kind of let the listeners know what your plans are and what you do every year and why you do it.
Yeah, for sure. So every year we do a 24-hour charity stream in memory of my good friend Jason, aka Spectre is what kind of his online tag name always was. He passed away from, I believe it was complications due to Crohn's and colitis. So all the proceeds go to Crohn's and Colitis Canada. We do 24 hours. It's starting on October 21st at 10 a.m. my time until October 22nd, 10 a.m. my time as well. And we're going to be playing a bunch of, I usually do like a lot of retro games and stuff. So this year, I almost always do like a Mega Man game in my first block, but this year I decided to kind of change it up a bit. I'm doing Rockin' Cats, which is a super rare but really, really good NES game that I grew up playing. Think of it being like Bionic Commando, but fun. And then
Fair enough.
And then I'm going to be playing Darkwing Duck in my first block as well. So that's basically a Mega Man game, but it's a little different. It's got a little bit different stuff in there. And then I'm doing a terrible game block for the late block. So every block, there's 4 blocks. They're each, I think, 6 hours. And so from, what would it be, 10 p.m. till like 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. My math is bad, guys. I'm going to be playing a bunch of terrible games. And if we reach donation goals, the bad games get badder. Like, I'm talking Aquaman on the GameCube, which was made by the same team that did Superman 64. So it's there's some good yet bad stuff in there. I don't think I put Bubsy 3D on there this time.
Damn, come on, man.
But I do have Beast Wars listed on.
Okay,
for
that's
PS1.
dog shit.
Dragon Ball Z Sagas is the highest donation goal because I hate that game so much. So
you're like, if I'm gonna have to play this shitty ass game, you're gonna pay me for it.
Yeah, if we could raise 3,500 by the time we get to the third block, which is my second block, or during that block at any time, I will stop what I'm doing and play Dragon Ball Z Sagas. That game is fucking hot and wet garbage. Like, you're there every year, you know.
Yeah.
We
it's
have
a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I thought the funniest part for me in the last few years was when you and Mike had your Sonic race.
Oh, and I had to wear the Proto Man.
Yeah, because Mike is so bad at Sonic that you're like, I can beat him using the Proto Buster.
And I did.
And he did, and you did. and you couldn't even, like, hit the fucking buttons with the Proto Blaster. It was like, what?
Yeah, I think if I had played it on an actual Genesis controller, it would have been easier because the buttons are bigger.
Right.
But yeah, it was brutal. And then because I have a channel points donation usually where I have to hold the controller upside down. So it got to a point where I was using the Proto Buster on my arm and holding the controller upside down. So I was trying to use the D-pad with that fucking Buster on my arm, and it was like impossible.
But yeah, I always have a blast every time I'm in that stream because, like, you know, you're wearing a silly costume, or you're playing a really bad game and getting frustrated, or, you know, somebody's like throwing $100 here and $100 there, and it's like, it's just a really good time, and it's for a good cause, and, you know, it's in honor of your friend that passed away, and it's just an overall good experience to be a part of. And you know, I donate every year. I enjoy being there in the streams. I mean, I'm in the streams all the time, but I really enjoy Spectre Fest a lot. So definitely, guys, if you're listening to this podcast, check out Spectre Fest. It is a blast. I'll be there. Corey will kind of be there, I guess. But anyway, guys, we're going to go ahead and get into the main topic. We're about 10, 11 minutes in. We're going to talk about Final Fantasy VIII. This is episode 2 of our multi-part series. Like I said earlier, we're going to try to get this down to 2 episodes, but we might have to run it into a 3rd episode. So we're going to get as far as we can tonight and see where the night takes us. So the last time we left off, we talked about earlier, was in the Dollet mission. We finished that. We got to the beach. If you killed the spider, you just run into the ship and you take off and you're done. If you do not kill the spider, Quistis goes all badass, pulls out the machine gun, the minigun, and just destroys this fucking thing.
Like Terminator style.
Right. So, anyway, let's start off at the end of the Dollet mission. We find ourselves at a after party, basically, for the seeds that graduated. And the seeds that graduated were Zell, Squall, Selfie, and an unnamed guy, which I believe his name is like Nida or Nida or whatever. It's like Nida, I think.
Yeah, I don't remember.
He actually comes back later.
Steering the garden later on,
Later on, we'll kind of talk about him a little bit more, but he does come back in a pretty not big, but decent sized way.
Yeah.
So after the mission, we change clothes into kind of more formal clothing. And
which is where I got stuck in my first playthrough, because I couldn't figure out how to do it.
Right. So we have the dance scene with Squall and Rinoa, and it kind of starts out, Squall's being a wallflower. He's just sitting by, drinking,
sitting there being the best looking guy in the room.
And what's funny is that this is where remasters and remakes kind of take the charm out of certain things, because it's become a meme in the Final Fantasy, and by extension Final Fantasy VIII community, that Squall is the best looking guy in the room, and you look at his face and it's like this just pixelated garbage
there's like
mess.
The tearing too, right?
Yeah.
Like half his face is higher than the other half.
Right. So it's become a meme, but in the remastered version, they updated his character model, so now he actually does look like the best guy in the room. So it's funny how things kind of, like, as cool as the remaster is, it has those little quirks that just kind of it was better in the original because of how funny it was. But yeah, she walks up, she's kind of flirting with Squall. Squall doesn't know who this girl is yet. And she kind of tries to break Squall out of his shell. Like, he is clearly not having it. Zell walks by and wants to, like, fist bump, and he's like, nah, whatever, get away from me, or...
He just wants to enjoy his own company on
right.
the
He
side
just
there.
he just wants to listen to music, drink, and get it over with, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like we all do.
Mhm.
But so Rinoa pulls him out onto the dance floor, and I don't know if you noticed this or not. Waltz to the Moon has the leitmotif of the Eyes on Me song.
Okay,
So-
I think a lot of the song tracks in the game have that.
A lot of them do. Yeah, that is Uematsu's style almost to the letter. He likes
I
his
love when he
leitmotifs.
does that.
I do too, because it
Ties
bring-
it all together.
it ties it all together. The themes, the atmosphere, the sound, it all ties in together. And to be fair, like that makes sense because this game is about Squall and Rinoa.
Yeah.
And more specifically about Squall. And as you see the theme of this game come together, these things are important to everything. So it's cool that Uematsu has this style where the songs tell a story themselves, and that's what I've always loved about his style.
Yeah.
So at first, Squall kind of is like, "Oh, I'm gonna act like I don't know how to dance," and then when he realizes, like, okay, she's not giving up, then he like starts being really fucking good at it, like.
And then she's like, how come you're so good at dancing or whatever?
Yeah,
right?
later on the train, she's like, "How are you so good at dancing?" And he's like,
yeah.
"Well,
We have
you
to
know,
train this shit.
we have to train this
basically."
just in case, in subterfuge or whatever." And she's like, "Oh, so it's just part of your job?" Like
Yeah.
she's really upset that she thought like he
That it's
wanted
like a special moment,
right, and
for
he's just
her
like,
kind of thing. Yeah.
and he's just like, "Guess what, bitch?
Between
I was
the
just
two of
doing
them.
my job."
Yeah. You're just a job to me.
Yeah.
You
Uh,
pussy.
It's so funny. So we'll point out something later about their relationship that a lot of people, I don't know if they noticed or not, but just something that I picked up on in my playthrough, and something I've heard Mike from Resident Arc pick up on his latest playthrough. Now, I think this scene after this dance is a little bit more important than the dance itself.
The Quistis part?
Yes, because I think, like, to me, this is where, not specifically the part with Quistis, but what happens right after that. But, so they're at the dance, and Squall leaves the room, because Rinoa kind of takes off, and what we didn't know at the time, meet with Sid. She goes to meet with Sid, but we don't know that until, like, maybe 10 minutes later. You go to the balcony, and Quistis comes out and wants to talk to you and says, "Hey, my final order is we need to go to the training center." And Squall is like, "It's after hours, why does she want me to go here?"
Yeah, you can't tell me, you can't give me orders either, right? Like, it's after hours.
So, what's funny about this is that they get there, and you realize, like, this is a makeout spot.
Yeah.
This is where the garden kids go to make out and shit. It's
through the training area. Like, it's guarded by, like, all those plants and T-Rex ores and everything, right? So people sneak through there to get to this little area.
Right. The things we do for little But it's funny, like, so they kind of do something cool in this scene, and it's that they're talking openly in front of everybody, and there's no privacy whatsoever, because there's couples, like, standing there.
Macking it up.
But that's very Japan. Like, Japan, it's very hard outside of your home
to get privacy.
So this is kind of...
Unless you go to a love hotel.
Yeah. You see these things, though, throughout the game that, like, it kind of feels like a military, like, almost American-style military, or, like, something like that, like, military lifestyle. But...
crossed with, like, a private school kind of thing, right?
Right. It's kind of like a private school, but also you can see the Japanese influences throughout the game.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and they do it unknowingly too, right?
Right,
like
and
that's just how stuff is, as far as they know.
As hard as they try to westernize their games, there's things they don't realize about Western society that they put in their games that is very clearly Japanese, and this is one of them, where they don't get much privacy outside of their homes, and so they don't think anything of talking about these major things in front of these random people. So, But she basically tells him that she can't be a teacher anymore. Like, she has no leadership skills or qualities. The garden has decided that she's no longer going to be a teacher. She is just a seed now. Like, it's just what she does.
Man, the Treppies are gonna be disappointed.
Right. And that's the thing too. Squall,
she's got her own fan club.
Yeah,
Could
she
you
does.
imagine if you went to high school and like I think everybody had that hot teacher. The hotness of them like varies from school to school, obviously. But could you imagine if the students had a club based around that hot teacher? Like, how fucked up would that be?
Right. Well, and the thing is, like, her relationship is so weird with everybody because she is a teacher. But she's literally
the same age.
She's literally only a year older than Squall.
Yeah.
And, like, we would find that in Western societies, that would be weird. But to them, like, 18 and 17, like, they're right here together. So it's not a big deal to them. But, like, a lot of people found this relationship really weird. But Squall kind of just doesn't want to deal with her. Like,
no,
this is not
annoying, kind of. Hey,
yeah, this is not his problem. Is basically what he tells her. Like, this is not my problem. Why are you dumping this on me? But he's kind of rude a little bit to her a lot.
She's trying to like get it off her chest, like deal with like the information she was just given, and she's kind of confiding in him. But to him, and honestly, it's true that they don't really have that kind of a relationship. So he's like, why the fuck are you telling me this? You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. And the next thing that happens here is interesting because I didn't notice it ever until this last playthrough. When you leave the training center and you meet Alone, who you don't know that it is Alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't know who she is. She was in the infirmary in the very beginning of the game. You didn't know her then. She knows you. Like, she even says in the beginning, like we said last episode, like, hey, it's like Squall, so we meet again, or something like that.
Yeah.
She calls Quisty.
Right. I didn't notice that either.
So she knows who Quistis is because she called her by a nickname, and you don't do that unless you know who that person is, right? And so I never noticed that. And so
I never.
She knows not only Squall, but she knows Quistis. So these are the first pieces, I think, of them throwing the plot twist kind of in your face, but not really throwing it in your face. And this kind of setup is something that we went back and forth a little bit last time about it. I like the plot twist now more than I did, but as an older player, I see things more clearly than I did before.
But I think it's also because you're replaying it, so you're looking for that stuff too.
Exactly, and that's the problem.
That it's almost like, remember when like The Matrix first came out and like everyone was like, this is the best movie ever, but you really got to see it twice, kind of thing.
Right.
It's kind of like that. Like the game's a lot better the second time through than it is the first time. I feel like.
Well, and I think the problem I have with Kitase and Nomura-led games is that they are all like this. And I get that gives you replayability, but a lot of people don't play RPGs more than once unless it really hits them. And Final Fantasy VIII is so divisive that I feel like a lot of people played it once, and a lot didn't finish it, or never touched it again.
Yeah.
And the problem with Kitase,
and it's a hard game too. Like even if you're playing your cards right, like when you get to that final area, like
literally,
it's the hardest. I think it's the hardest Final Fantasy at the final boss.
Yeah, I agree. I think the final area is probably one of the hardest in Final Fantasy, but like this is why I don't necessarily like Kitase-led games, because I understand that like you want to create mystery, but you don't need to create mystery to the point where the player doesn't know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
So that by the time you get to the plot twist, it feels like an ass pull.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why I think a lot of people did not see Final Fantasy VIII's plot twist as being well developed. And they're kind of right. But
it's developed, but you have to go so far off the trail to get that development instead of it being like part of the main story, which is it should have been part of the main story.
Right. And how hard would it have been to throw in like 9 or 10 lines into the exposition in the main story to get these points across instead of like little tidbits of hints
in like a side diary that you never have to check ever.
Right.
And,
well, because
like most people don't even know about. Like you check it. Some people don't even check it at the beginning and miss out on the 2 GFs at the start of the game, right?
Yeah, and if you don't check that desk at the beginning and you read all the text, like if you're not a researcher with these games, you're not going to see that.
Yeah.
And then, later on you can read Selfie's diary on the desk, but if you don't go back and read that, you'll never see it. And she she even explicitly says in the diary, I hope I don't lose my memories. I've heard that's a side effect of Guardian Force use.
Yeah, and like I never went back to the desk after the beginning, right?
Plot twist. Right there.
Yeah. Sets it up.
And that's in disc 1.
And I think the thing is, there would have been a perfect place and time to do it when Selfie is getting like the stage built in the garden and all that. You know what I mean? Like they could have worked it into that part.
Right. Well, and Guardian Forces are such a big part of the game that you would have thought somewhere along the line that would have been the thing, right? Like put it in there somewhere. Oh
yeah, before we get too much further, so I think we talked about this off camera or whatever, but the first time pretty much anyone plays Final Fantasy VIII, I feel like you completely rely on the summons to deal all your damage, hey? Like did you do that with your first playthrough as well?
Yeah, first playthrough totally, yeah.
Yeah, and then like the final dungeon takes away everything when you first get there, and like if you've been relying on GFs the whole game, it's basically a soft lock. Like you can't beat it. That happened the first time I got to the final castle.
Yeah, but like I don't know, I love this game, but I understand why people don't understand it.
Oh yeah, it's a frustrating game if you don't know its ins and outs.
So. And another thing I forgot to mention this, but at the Seed graduation, the garden staff actually says, don't listen to people when they talk about Guardian Forces and how bad they are.
Right, I do remember that.
Kind of another piece of the puzzle.
I remember hating those guys like right out of the gate.
Yeah, because they're dicks. But the thing is, when he says that, then you realize that people have doubts about Guardian Forces.
And you're like, why?
Yeah, you're like, why? So it's just, it's funny, given that. After they leave alone, which they save her from the Granado or something.
Is that the armadillo? Dildo? Armadillo looking things?
God damn it. Yeah.
Like that flying guy that throws those armadillos at you?
Yeah, it's like Grinaldo and then Armaldo, I think. I don't remember. Yeah. But yeah, that's the boss.
The armadillo boss?
Yeah, once you fight that boss, she kind of acts like she knows you, and then she leaves with what we later find out are the white seeds.
Yeah.
That are kind of her guardians. After that scene with Alone, we get a mission from Sid. And this mission is kind of twofold. It kind of sets up the need for the party to be together for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it does.
And it also sets it up to, like, this is how they reconnect, right?
Which is weird because this is, like, the only mission they really ever get sent on.
Right.
Besides, like, the secondary part of it.
Yeah, because everything else is kind of... Yeah, everything else is kind of on the fly.
Yeah.
So, we're on the train. We're going to go to Timber to meet up with the Resistance, the Owls. But before we do that...
you get the
lamp.
Dark lamp or whatever.
The magical lamp. Which is how you get Diablo. Which, if you do this fight super early, is a real bastard.
Yeah.
But it's worth it to get Diablos because he's the coolest fucking GF in the game.
He is one of the coolest summons in all of Final Fantasy.
Oh, totally agreed. this mission is the catalyst for everything that happens from now on in the rest of the game. So we get on the train to go to Timber, and this is the very first Laguna dream, and this is where we kind of figure out that things aren't what they seem.
Right.
Something is happening.
It like has like that, almost like you can tell that's like ringing in their ears too, when they're dropping, like they're all passing out, right? And you honestly think that they're being gassed or something on the train is what I thought in my initial playthrough.
Well, and they actually bring that up after they wake up. We'll get to that in a second. So this dream is basically Laguna, Kyros, and Ward. They're 3 soldiers in the Galbadian army, and they wake up and they're like, they're in a forest area or something. There's been a battle, and Laguna wants to get back to Galbadia, which is Daling City, and
where they're from. Basically.
Where they're from, but he has ulterior motives, of course. He wants to go meet Julia, the piano player. And dude, this is the first time where you see Laguna, and you're like, okay, there's these guys are supposed to be badass soldiers, you know?
Yeah.
And he is the goofiest motherfucker in the game. He's
the best, though.
Dude, he is the best. And he's that guy that, like, everything positive that ever happens to him is just pure luck.
Oh,
like,
yeah. He just fumbles through life based on his luck alone.
He is in the right place at the right time, you know.
Sometimes the wrong place at the wrong time, too, though.
But it still works out somehow.
Yeah, it does work out.
And the thing is, like, even though he's kind of dumb, like, he's kind of a dumb character, and he is the exact opposite of Squall. He wants to be friends with people. He wants to travel. He wants to, like, he loves his friends. He depends on his friends. He wants to
see the world. He basically he says he joined the military to see the world, right?
Yeah, and he is the counterbalance to Squall, and I think that's perfect the way they set this up.
Another thing is the weapon he uses, like he uses a machine gun.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't think do you ever see that in Final Fantasy again?
There are guns, but I don't think it's like a straight up machine gun like he's got.
Yeah.
What's funny is that, you know, the song Man with the Machine Gun is the battle theme whenever you play as Laguna, Kyros, and Ward. And it's literally, I mean, it is literal, the title of that song, because he is the man with the machine gun.
Yeah.
But,
best song in the game.
Which is, it's like the best fucking song in the game, and of course it's Laguna's.
And his limit break, he comes like on like, doesn't he like swing from like a rope?
Yeah,
and,
he
like,
swings from a rope,
throw grenades.
Yeah,
and shit.
He rains down fire on him.
Right,
not fire, but bullets. You know.
Yeah.
And you know, Ward uses like this big anchor.
Giant anchor. That's super weird. That's like the weirdest weapon ever.
And Kyros uses like twin blades. It's really cool.
Yeah, like butterfly blades, kind of.
But Laguna's kind of dumb. Like, everything he does is fucking like it just happens. He has these grand plans. He's like that guy that plans like these big grandiose things, but he never.
It always like falls apart, or it doesn't go the way at all how he planned it.
Right.
But he still fumbles through somehow.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just not Squall. Squall's calculated, you know. And it's been said in the past that Laguna and this crew were supposed to have a much larger role in the story than they did, but they had to cut it. And apparently, according to Kazushige Nojima, he actually apologized to the development staff because they created all these assets. Like, they had a world map for Laguna. They had everything for Laguna and Party, like, that they did with Squall and all them. But they didn't end up using it, and apparently Kazushige Nojima actually apologized to the development staff for having to throw all of that out. And you can kind of tell that this is the case, because, like, there were things there's a lot of things
unanswered questions with the world, and I think that's my favorite thing about Final Fantasy VIII is like the world itself lore. Mm-hmm. Like there's like Centra was destroyed by a lunar cry, right?
Yep.
There's that spot near Trabia. There's like a giant fucking crater in the world around Trabia. I can't remember if that was like the first lunar cry or if that, I can't remember, because I used to know, like I dug into all this stuff because it's so interesting to me. Or it was like the first artificial lunar cry, because there's natural ones And then there's that lunatic Pandora,
Mhm.
which creates like artificial lunar cries, I think, right?
Well, I think they make them bigger.
Or they can force it to happen.
Yep, they can guide the lunar cry to a certain spot.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into that later, because there's one thing that really bothers me about the lunar cry section, and it stems from my feeling that the entire like last fifth of the game just falls off super hard. But we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, Laguna just kind of is that guy, and we see it in this scene specifically because he goes to meet Julia, and you walk into the bar, and everybody knows why he's there. They're making fun of him for it. He's like, I just want to drink, and they're like, you don't drink. Well, I could. You know, like he's that guy.
If I wanted to.
Well, you walk in there and there's like this, and I don't know, this is kind of a headcanon thing, so don't take this as 100% fact. There's a soldier in there, a red uniformed soldier, so you know he's a little bit higher ranking, and he's mad that Laguna is there to see Julia. I don't know who this soldier is. They don't name him.
Probably Biggs' dad.
Well,
Biggs Senior.
Yeah, I think that's General Caraway.
Yeah, I was just going to say, could it be Caraway?
I think it's Caraway. Because he even mentioned something about getting Laguna sent off to war or to the front lines or whatever, or something like that. There's something that he says, but it kind of gives you the hint that, like, hey, this guy has a thing for Julia, and he's mad that Laguna's here after her.
I thought of that before, but it totally could be Caraway.
Yeah, it totally could be. So he walks up, and he tries to talk to her, and then he gets fucking leg cramps.
Yeah, when he gets nervous.
What did you think was going on when this first happened? Because I had I did not think leg cramps at all.
So, yeah, no, I thought leg cramps for sure. Like, he just gets, like, nervous and gets a leg cramp, or he makes it up so he doesn't have to deal with the situation.
Right. I thought he was getting, like, you know how sometimes you get nervous and you have, like, a stomach ache or something?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I thought was going on. Was like he was having a stomach ache or he was nervous or something. And then like, you know, he's just goofy. He can't control himself.
Yeah.
In front of this hot girl.
I think initially I thought it was like him just giving an excuse as to like, no, I can't go through with this. Like, fuck this, let's bail. But then later on, he like gets leg cramps in like the middle of battle and stuff, and it's like, okay, yeah, no, this is a thing that he suffered from. Like,
this is a nervous reaction.
Yeah.
What cracks me up about it too is that like, even as dumb as he is sometimes, and as like nervous as he gets, and as like goofy, everyone loves him.
Yeah, well, he's got a lot of charisma. He's a really good guy.
Yeah, people want to be around him, and I think that's something that you kind of see in Squall, even though he's a dick. Like,
yeah,
people naturally gravitate towards Squall, but we don't know why, you know? Because, like, he's always a dick to everybody.
He is, but he's reliable at the same time.
Right,
like,
he is reliable. To a fault sometimes.
And Laguna's reliable, but he's also, like, he wants to help people. Laguna,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, if somebody's in trouble, Laguna is going to go help him out.
He wants to make friends.
And you keep saying Laguna's an idiot, but I don't think that's what it is. I think Laguna is completely okay with winging it all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas Squall needs a setup plan. He needs to think about... He's always overthinking. Like, half the game is in his head, right? Half the dialogue of the game is just him thinking.
Right.
In his head. Like, all the stuff in brackets is just Squall thinking.
Which I think is genius, by the way.
Yeah, but it reminds me of... Do you remember, like, the 90s Spider-Man cartoon?
Yes.
And like almost all the dialogue on that show was like in like Spider-Man thinking to himself and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think like that I played Final Fantasy VIII at like the perfect time because I think that Spider-Man cartoon was like over by this time, but that show was so well done. So when it would show him talking in like brackets like that all the time, I was like, oh yeah, he's like thinking to himself, because like comics do that all the time too, right? Where they'll have like, a fluffy bubble to tell you they're thinking and stuff.
And the other thing too about it is that those creep up in Laguna's scenes.
Yeah, where they're thinking about like what's happening in Laguna's scene.
Like Squall will say, "This guy is an idiot."
Yeah.
And then like Laguna's like,
What was that?
What was that?
Yeah.
So that's our first sign too that like
it's not just two different
they can
stories
kind of
completely.
feel when people are in their head, even if they
Mhm.
don't realize what's going on. And there's a scene later that we'll talk about that actually goes into that. But yeah, he meets Julia, he gets the leg cramp, he walks away, you know, and Kyrus and Ward, to their credit, are fucking wingmen.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
he tries to leave. He's like, I'm done. I think, you know, I had my shot. I didn't take it. And they're like, no, you're going to sit here and you're going to talk to her and you're going to like it.
Because you made us come out here tonight.
Right.
Like,
So she walks up. They walk away. Now Laguna's trapped.
Oh, yeah, and he doesn't know they've walked away because he's facing her at this point, right?
Right.
And then doesn't he, like, turn around and they're not there?
Yeah. So then he sits down. And he's all quiet and, like, he doesn't know what to say. So she's like, okay, let's go to my hotel room. And he's like, oh, you know, what's going on, you know? Well, then they start to drink. And, like, he
gets
is like,
nervous still.
yeah, well,
like, more nervous.
I want to say it's either Kyrus and Ward, or maybe he's thinking to himself, like, don't talk about myself. Don't let her talk. Find out what she likes. Find out what she's about, right? Well, then they start drinking in the hotel room. And then all of a sudden,
he like tells her his whole life
the
story,
fucking
basically.
and
like his like goals, his dreams, and everything.
The fucking floodgates open, and Laguna just spills his entire life story.
Yeah,
and dude, I love that part, and it cracks me up too because even through all that, you can tell that she has feelings for him, and he doesn't get it at all.
No, he's kind of oblivious. Like he likes her. And he knows that for some reason she kind of wants to be around him, but he can't like nail down like why. And I think just that makes him nervous that she even wants to be in his presence because he can't understand why. You know,
and we actually find out later that she's in love with him.
Yeah,
and he
does. She writes that song about him, right?
She does, but we don't know that because so. She says, I believe in the hotel room, she says something about how she's been writing this song, and until this moment, she didn't know the lyrics she was going to write. She'd had the music, but she didn't know what she was going to write lyrically. And he inspired her to write this song. Later on, they're talking about it, and Rain brings it up.
Right, yeah.
But we'll get to that. We get through this scene, and Kyrus and Ward kind of cockblock him a little bit, but it's kind of important. They tell him, hey, we just got orders.
Yeah, they gotta deploy or something.
We've got to deploy immediately, like, let's go. And he had fallen asleep, so she was just kind of watching him sleep because he fell asleep, and now he's awake, he's got to go. He can't say what he wants to say to her. And this is where this is the final time these two will ever talk to each other.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think they ever see each other again, do they?
They don't.
No.
Unfortunately, they don't. So,
as classic war, like World War II,
right.
Not even World War II, but like post-World War II, when like the peacekeeping soldiers were put like in Germany and stuff, like that shit happened. You hear about that stuff all the time.
Right.
Where they're like posted here or whatever for a couple weeks, and then they move to another post. Like that stuff happened a lot back then.
The party wakes up after this, and they all realize they had the same dream, and they're like, "Okay, that was weird."
What's going on here?
But they just completely dismiss it.
Yeah, that's true.
They're like,
they bring it up. They talk about it like when it happens again, but they don't really.
It never comes up until that moment again. And they're like, "Oh, you dreamed about Laguna? Oh, that's weird. I dreamed about Laguna.
Yeah,
probably not it. Probably nothing. You know?
Yeah."
We meet Rinoa in Timber, and Squall walks in, and they're all like, "Oh, you got to go meet the princess." And he's like, "Who's the princess?" Right?
Right, and he hasn't met her outside of that dance yet,
right?
Either, right? He doesn't even know her name, does he? At this point,
no, he doesn't. Well, because they refer to her as princess.
Yeah,
and then she like introduces herself to him when he gets back to her room. But they're like, "Oh, the princess is sleeping. Go wake her up." And it kind of, this is where you also realize, like, you remember that these kids are 16, 17, 18. Like, their terminology, the way they talk, how they address each other. It's all
Yeah,
very
act around each other too.
Yeah, very young adult sounding. You go back there, you meet Rinoa. She tells you who she is. You know, you have the scene.
Introduces you to her dog.
Yeah, Angelo. Yeah.
Who she launches off her arm
Yeah.
as a cannon for her limit break, which is hilarious.
Advocating animal abuse, apparently. Yeah, she introduces herself, and she's like, oh, you know, this is where we talked about earlier about the dance. Like, where'd you learn how to dance? Like, you're really good at this. And he's like, oh, it's, you know, you never know what's going to come up in the battlefield.
Part of his training, basically.
It's subterfuge and all this other stuff. And she's like, oh, so it was just part of your job. And this is where you can kind of see that she likes him. She likes him, but she feels like a lot of their moment wasn't as special as she initially thought either. Right, because he completely dismisses the idea that maybe he wanted to dance with her. Yeah. So you meet her. She's definitely very immature, but she shows you the plan to kidnap the president of Galbadia, and all of that. And that train sequence is fucking terrible. But it's not. The cutscenes are cool. Like the concept and everything's cool, but the like little mini game that it makes you play is so awful. Yeah. So what I thought was funny about this was they make fun of her throughout this whole scene. Like her friends do. Yeah. Right? Well, no, they all do. Yeah. They all shit on her hard, and it's almost Zone and what's the other guy's name? Watts. Ah, right. They like shit on her because they're like, "Oh, all these trains look really nice. What's with this one that looks kind of shitty?" And the one like she designed, basically. And I think it's Watts or Zone or whatever. They're like, "Oh, well, we bought all of these. She made this one." And then she's almost like, "What's wrong with it?" You know, like, and nobody thinks to be like, "Oh, it looks great." Everybody's like, "Well, this kind of looks shabby, and the paint's kind of bad," and like they're all every single person has their input on like shit. And then she kind of asks Squall, and Squall, I want to say Squall has a choice to kind of shit on her or be nice. And I think this is where I kind of don't like that the game gives you certain choices. Because canonically, I think Squall would be a dick here. Absolutely. More so than he would be later in the game. I mean, you can play the character any way you want, but the love story is kind of dictated by your choices. And I don't mean that in that it changes. No. But more so in how it's perceived. Yeah, that's true. So like Squall early on is going to be a dick, but if you're nice to her throughout the whole game, it doesn't really match up with like the pre-done story kind of like. Yeah, you're almost pushing Squall in a direction that he's not ready to go yet. Yeah. So you finally get the cart or the train put together, and it's funny because there's a soldier that walks in, and he's like, this train's car looks a little bit more shabby than I remember. And like references like them making fun of Rinoa again. Yeah. There's another the best part is like the president's such a prick that the guards don't even notice that he's been swapped. Yeah. Well, that and there's the one guard that's like, oh, you know, I can't wait to buy an engagement ring. And whatever. Yeah, and the president loses his shit on him, doesn't he? Or something? And he's like, oh, there goes my paycheck. I guess I'm not getting that ring or whatever. Yeah. And then later he's a dick to him again, and he's like, oh, I guess, you know, I'm not going to be able to afford that candlelit dinner because there goes another paycheck. And it's like, it's you kind of feel bad for that guy. Yeah, yeah. I always like when games do that. They'll throw like this little random NPC in, and you get a little insight into his life, and it's like, but it's also like kind of like ripping on him a little bit. You get the fake president, and like Rinoa's all hyped. She's like, "Yeah, my plan worked." Blah blah blah. And then she goes to talk to him, and he gets all weird. And his text is weird in the text boxes. It's like certain letters are randomly capitalized, and you can tell something's not quite right. And then all of a sudden, he's like shuffling around like a zombie, and he's like fucking jolting around. And there's two phases to this fight. So there's the human form and the Jiro form, and you kill the one form normally. Then you get to the Jiro form, and it's like use a Phoenix Down or an X potion.
Oh,
or
yeah, because he's undead, like zombie. Yeah.
So you can just kill him in one fucking hit. It's like one of the most anticlimactic fucking boss fights in the entire game.
Final Fantasy does that a lot, though.
Yeah, that's true. They do.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Scar Miglione in 4 was the same.
Yeah, they always have like maybe a joke boss. 7 had it with the Cosmo Canyon boss is like you just use a Phoenix Down and it kills it. Yeah.
I always like that touch, but at the same time, yeah, it kind of like ruins the boss fight too.
Yeah, it seems like a waste.
But it's your choice.
Right. It seems kind of like a waste of a high point. But at the same time, if you don't know that that's a mechanic, you're probably not going to use it. Yeah.
Exactly.
So you're not going to think of that. So I could see kind of where it's not really a joke. Yeah. But back when this game came out, there was not a lot of internet talk.
Yeah. I would say there was no internet talk really, but there were like little cheat codes and like
strategy guides,
bios and stuff. Yeah.
At the core of this game is the fact that these guys are, yes, they're trained in the military, but they're still teenagers.
Yeah,
and
they're
their plans sound like they're written by teenagers.
Yeah. They sound good, except they don't take into consideration if anything goes wrong. Like
Right, exactly. Like even when they plan stuff, Rinoa, Zone, and Watts, they like hunch down on the floor like kids.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. They're like huddle in the corner.
Yeah, they're like,
and they even kind of leave the seed guys out of it, right?
Yeah, they do.
What are they doing?
They're kind of like meeting secretly.
Yeah.
One thing that I enjoyed that this game really did, and it was a really simple move, and it was the fact that they hand Squall his contract. And Sid royally fucked him.
Oh, right. He says they have to stay with them until basically Galbadia is free or something like that.
Timber is
free. Yeah.
And that is so open-ended that basically until Timber is liberated, Squall and the party are with Rinoa forever.
Yeah.
So if Timber never gets liberated, they're still going to be there together with them.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think that little tiny detail is a good way for this party to be permanent now. So we kind of figure out that the Dollet mission was all part of this because of the broadcast tower. The president's trying to broadcast that he's joining Galbadia with the sorceress. They get to the TV station, and there's something interesting. They get in front of this TV screen, and it's got all this jumbled red lettering and everything else. Did you know that that's actually a message?
No, I don't remember it even.
You don't. So, like, you remember how they're on the stairs and there's like that catwalk or whatever?
Yeah.
Going to the TV station, and then right above it is a giant monitor.
Yeah.
And that's where the president shows up on the monitor and says, "Yeah, this is like the ambassador."
In front of the podium and all that.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, before and after that, there is a bunch of red lettering going across that screen. And you know how, like, the reason why they had to get the broadcast tower is because for 17 years there has been no broadcast, no radio waves, nothing, right?
Yeah.
There's been an interference they can't get over. Well, that's actually a message from Sorceress Edea.
Really?
It is. There's actual words in there. I don't remember what they are, but if you zoom in and freeze them at the right moment, you can read it, and it is a message from Sorceress Edea.
Oh, weird.
Which also leads to another plot twist later in the game, but again, we'll get into that. While we're watching the president, Seifer breaks into the broadcast, kidnaps the president himself, and then Quistis is like, "Oh, hey, if you're watching this, come to the broadcast station," which is obviously,
and you're pretty much there.
Yeah, right. So you walk in, and Zell is like, yeah, we're from Garden. And fucking Seifer's like, "Good job, chicken wuss. You just told him where we're from."
Yeah.
Like,
which sets up the whole missile attack from the Galbadian army.
Right, which sets up like, I don't know about you, but in this playthrough, I noticed that they do a good job of getting you from one moment to the next with even the slightest details.
Yeah.
Like Zelda.
Yeah, there's not a lot of empty wandering in this game.
I think the pacing is really good.
Mm-hmm. The only time the pacing slows down is like disc 3, and at that point, it's like the perfect time to do all the side quests and stuff. So I don't even mind that the pacing slows down at that point.
Right. I think the pacing of Final Fantasy VIII is damn near perfect.
Yeah, it's really good.
But yeah, so Zell basically like beats himself up over this. He's like, "Fuck! I just revealed that Garden is where we're from."
Well, he kind of gets down on himself. Like
a lot. Seifer takes the president into the other room. Edea appears and basically mind controls him to an extent. What did you think of this scene when you first?
So I thought it was kind of dumb that he just like bails on Seed and joins her right away. But I believe she does say something about be my knight or something like that. And because of who she is, she would know that he would kind of come because of that, right?
Well, here's the thing. I think that because of who is controlling Edea, she doesn't know about the orphanage.
She would, because doesn't she know? Doesn't she get all Edea's memories and stuff like that?
That's the thing.
I thought she does.
That's the thing, because when Seifer is torturing Squall later, he asks him what is Seed's secret mission.
Right, and Matron would have known.
And Matron would have known. So why would you torture Squall to find that out when Edea would know? But it seems to me like if you are possessing someone, you don't possess their memories. You're basically... Your consciousness is going into their body, but you're not mixing consciousness. So you're not getting the information that person has.
I think I like it less then. You know what I mean? Like not knowing, with her not knowing that he's always wanted to be a sorceress's knight. I think that part doesn't really work as well.
Well, it does, because we know that Seifer loves the idea of being a sorceress's knight.
Yeah.
And there's a tidbit later in the game where it says sorceresses almost always have a knight. There's like a mysticism about it. There's like a romantic...
Yeah.
Not in a like a love kind of way, but there's like a romanticized story.
Ideal of that.
Ideal, right.
Yeah.
So when Seifer hears those words, "Be my knight," she is, yes, playing on his childhood dreams, even though she doesn't know that.
She would also know how high of a position that is to anyone, right? It's anyone who knows.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's almost like a bodyguard, but also like a vice president type position. It's not only a source of power, but also a political thing.
Yeah.
And to him, that's a childhood dream. It's romanticized in his head. Here's this hot woman wanting me to be her knight. I'm going to go do it because this is what I've always wanted with my life.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's like he was basically raised by Garden. Like, he might not like Squall and Zell and those guys, but he's got to respect Sid. And Sid is basically who raised him. So I thought that was kind of dumb.
But in that scene, in the room, there's a purple haze going on. And then all of a sudden, Seifer is turning sides.
Yeah, that's why I think there's got to be some kind of a...
So there's still some form of mind control. But I think to mind control him, she had to kind of break him down. And by saying, "Come be my knight," be a man.
Let her in.
Don't be
let her in.
Yeah, don't be a boy, be a man. And that's been his whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And so she breaks him down, she mind controls him, she brainwashes him, she gets him to go with her. And then, we leave there, the party's like, "Oh shit, we can't go back to Balam. we got to go to Galbadia. That's our protocol.
Well, yeah, they're told to go to the nearest garden.
The nearest garden.
Oh, where's that? And it's just happens to be Galbadia, which is like enemy territory.
Right.
But the gardens are all like kind of neutral, right? Like they're kind of their own.
Sort of. Galbadia is kind of different because they, I believe, train Galbadian soldiers. They're not necessarily a seed garden. Like I think they train some seeds.
It doesn't go into Galbadia's kind of background.
Yeah, not really. I don't think Irvine is a seed, though. They never specifically mention him as a seed, right?
Yeah.
But speaking of, we'll meet him in a second. Next we have the forest outside of Galbadia, and Squall, Quistis, and Selfie all collapse into deep sleep. And here we have another dream with Laguna, Kyros, and Ward. And this is actually one of my favorite dreams for one very specific reason. They're in the excavation site, they face off against some soldiers, they're forced to jump from a cliff.
Right, okay, this one, yeah.
Kyros and Ward.
The dream order mixed up.
Right, and I did too, and that's why I had to write it down as I was playing, because I forgot which order they go in, but they actually do go in chronological order.
So they're like in Esthar at this point, right?
I think they're either in Esthar or they're in... No, I think they might still be in Galbadia.
Okay.
But they're excavating a crystal or a pillar of some sort, which turns out later to be the Lunatic Pandora. Right.
Yeah. But there's Esthar soldiers there, isn't there?
Right, there's Esthar soldiers there. And Kyros and Ward get injured, and they almost die. This is where Ward injures his throat and loses his voice, too, so that's important for later. What I loved about this scene, and why it's one of my favorite in the entire game, is it's another example of Laguna being like that wrong place, right time, lucky, bumbling through life kind of guy. But it's almost the most Laguna thing in the entire game. And Kyros and Ward almost die. He throws them off the cliff to save him.
Yeah.
And then he looks down from the cliff.
He's like, oh, fuck, I don't know how you guys did this.
He's like, you guys are brave. I don't know how you... And then he falls off.
Yeah, he's like trying to like ease himself down and then slips and falls down.
And, dude, it is the most... fucking
I don't know how you guys did this. But they're like unconscious and he threw them off, basically.
It's the most fucking Laguna thing in the entire game, and I love this scene because of it. Like, it's just fucking hilarious.
Yeah, and that's how they escape from the Esthar soldiers, basically.
Yeah, there's boats down in the harbor that they jump down into and they're able to escape, which is the most fucking 007 bullshit way to get out of that situation ever. But... I love that scene. It's one of my favorites in the entire game. That's also where the Coochie Coochie treatment came from. Right.
Because he'll tickle him if he doesn't jump kind of thing, right?
Yeah. They wake up, they're like, again, and this bothers me, because, again, they're like, oh, you had the same dream? Oh yeah, I had the same dream.
And then they just don't
And then they just never fucking bring it up again. They arrive at Galbadia Garden, and they show us a cutscene of, like, flying machines and everything else. Like, what did you think of this?
The first thing I thought was, like, this place is, like, obviously has a bigger budget than the other garden. Like, they have been given, like, a military-style budget, right? Whereas Balam Garden is more like a school, right? Like, it's a school first, almost, and a military place second, whereas this feels more like even the school itself, like the garden itself, is more not well designed, but like more, I don't know, looks nicer, like more modernized and everything.
Well, and if you notice, like, they kind of have their own briefing room, and they kind of have, like, you know, students are working out in the hallways, and they have sports equipment in places. They have a hockey rink, like. Galbadia Garden is outfitted like a motherfucker.
Yeah, they have a way bigger budget than
or more. I almost don't think it's just the budget. I want to say that it's more of, like, priorities.
Yeah, that's true too. They have more of a militaristic priority.
Right. They're training soldiers. Balam Garden's more training mercenaries, but also like people that
raising
will go
kids.
Right, people that will go out in the world and do what they need to do and everything else. So I think that's kind of like where we see the difference in philosophy with them.
Yeah, and Trebia...
We don't really know much about them.
Yeah, Trebia puts on plays and stuff, I guess. Because that's all like Selphie ever wants to do, right? It's
yeah, I when I first saw this, I was like, oh my god, where are we? Like, this does not feel like any other part of the game we've been to so far.
Yeah. But it's you're in another country, right? They do a good job of making you feel like you've all of a sudden went to another country kind of thing.
Right. And Balam's more of like a small town
vibe. Yeah. And Galbadia is like cities and
right.
Yeah.
So it kind of, they're more militaristic, they're more, almost more advanced or civilized, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is where we meet the best character in Final Fantasy VIII, Irvine.
Yeah, Irvine.
Yeah. So before they meet Irvine, they have a moment where they realize Seifer's dead.
Yeah. Or they're pretty damn sure he's dead.
Yeah.
Like there's no reason for him to survive.
Rinoa kind of has a freak out here. And Squall, too. Rinoa's like, they ask her kind of like, did you know Seifer? And she's like, oh, we dated last summer, and I might have been in love with him. I really liked him and everything else. And then, like, Squall's kind of having his own thoughts separate from everybody else, and he's, like, freaking out internally.
Well,
like,
he's kind of, like, realizing, like, this could happen to any of us. Like,
right. Well, and he's also, like, Seifer... As much as he hates Seifer, he is one of them.
Yeah, they're still brothers in arms at the end of the day, right?
Right, and it's kind of like a brotherly love. Like,
you don't always get along with your brother, but he's still your brother kind of thing.
Right, and they're talking about him like he's a memory already. Like he's
and that pisses him off.
Yeah, he's allegedly been dead for 20 minutes at this point.
Yeah.
And they're already like, oh, we may not have liked Seifer, but he was one of us, and Squall freaks out.
He freaks out because he's like, is this what people are going to say about me if this happens to me kind of thing?
Yeah, and he even says, like, I don't want to be talked about in the past tense, and then he runs out of the room.
Yeah.
And it just...
Little bitch, kind of.
a little bit.
Yeah.
But Fujin and Raijin...
I think deep down he's also like realizing like if he does hook up with Rinoa, she's Seifer's sloppy seconds.
Yeah, and they don't. You know what's funny to me?
Because that's like when he finds out that they had a history too, right?
Right.
And so like it kind of distances him a little bit from her now.
And I'm gonna bring this up now because I don't want to forget this later. But I really, for as much as this is a love story, I feel like they never explore Seifer and Rinoa past this.
Yeah, not really.
It's kind of a throwaway line, and I don't like the fact that Seifer doesn't get enough character development
in the entire game.
Really. In the entire game past like disc 1.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, I feel like they should have at least explored a little bit more of Rinoa and Seifer, and maybe even have Squall be like more obviously jealous than he wants to let on. And they just kind of don't do that.
No,
and it kind of was a little... In this most recent playthrough, it was kind of more of a disappointment for me at the end of the day.
I think the only reason that they set that up in the first place, though, is so that when they encounter Seifer later on, like, she knows who he is. You know what I mean?
Right. I mean, it kind of does, yeah. It just...
But it is a missed opportunity.
Right. I kind of feel like it could have made Squall and Seifer's rivalry a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
Especially, like, in the torture scene later, I felt like there could have been a moment where he's like, oh, do you want me to torture your little girlfriend next, or something like that?
Yeah.
To kind of show that Seifer is the bastard that he is trying to portray himself as.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't do that. So I feel like it was kind of a lost opportunity here. Now, we leave the room, and Fujin and Raijin give us new orders. We're to meet with the headmaster at the outside of Galbadia Garden, and he gives us the plan and introduces us.
Or, no, you're right, Galbadia, sorry.
Gives us the plan, and we meet Irvine.
Yeah, and he is strutting. Or no, he's laying in like the bush and being the cool guy
with a butterfly like on his like he's
finger blasting butterflies.
His finger gun. God, he's so cool. I fucking love Irvine.
Yeah, he is the best.
He's like a more. He's like
inverted weeb, basically.
He's a Casanova Laguna.
Yeah,
like as much as Laguna underestimates his ability with women, Irvine overestimates.
Yeah.
He thinks he is this fucking pussy magnet.
God's gift to women. Yeah. And he really isn't. Like, he really doesn't even really know what to do if a woman was to come onto him, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Either. But he also basically his whole life he just role plays being a cowboy. Like, he's so like cheesy, but he plays it straight the whole time because he's so fucking serious.
He's such an anti. He is the exact opposite of everyone else.
Yeah,
in the party. Like, but again, they're showing his age.
Yeah. He's also like really smart. Like, he's definitely like he pulls them out of a couple situations that they wouldn't be able to figure out themselves. Like, he's kind of like the voice of reason a lot of times, where it's like they'll be like arguing about, oh, we need to do this, and he's like, guys, no, like if you do this is gonna happen. We need to do it this way, kind of thing. Like, he's a little bit more, I don't know if experienced is the word, but he definitely, as much as he plays up this like ladies man, like LARPing as a cowboy 24/7 guy, he also has like some intelligence behind him that he just, because it's hard to take him serious because of how ridiculous he is all the time, but he actually is like a pretty smart guy.
Well, and he is, according to the headmaster, the best marksman in the Galbadian like area.
Yeah.
And that's why they specifically select him. But there's another reason they select him that we'll find out later on that's more in line with the theme of the game. But Irvine to me is like, I think, we talked about it in our side quest podcast like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And you said it best. You said that he's the guy that would say, well, while you were out chasing girls, I was mastering the sword,
Yeah, except with like the rifle or whatever, right?
I was mastering the rifle while you were out chasing girls. Like,
yeah.
He's that guy. But I really like Irvine because he's funny and he's smart and he's just, you want to root for him.
Yeah,
like you want him to succeed. Even
my
though
favorite, like, as much as I hate Selphie as a character, like, she's definitely my least favorite character in the entire game.
Yeah, mine too.
But she'll be like, because like he'll do anything if he thinks like it's because a girl likes him or if it'll make a girl like him. So she's like, let's go look at the train. Let's go fucking hang out and look out the window of the train. He's like, yeah, baby, whatever you want. And he's just like follows her out there and thinks she's like all over him because of this, but really she's just like kind of wants everybody to do it, but he's the only one that's like thinks he's that guy that like the waitress is nice to you, so you think you're like dating the waitress. Like, he's that guy.
He spends $400 at the strip club because he thinks the girl wants to go home with him.
Yeah, he's totally that guy.
So what's funny, I'm glad that you mentioned the train thing because I actually forgot about this until you said it. If you go back and you talk, to them in the hallway of the train, he will actually say the line, "Oh, Selphie, we're destined to be together." Or
I remember that.
Something like that, right? And it's just funny because, like, that's another clue that something is going on that we don't realize yet.
Yeah. And Irvine knows, but he doesn't let on or anything.
He doesn't know, and
I think that's also why he's so comfortable with everyone all the time.
Right.
Because you notice that, like, all the other characters aren't necessarily, like, comfortable with each other. Like, they're, like, even Squall, like, the closest would be Squall and Zell, because they kind of grew up together at the school. But even they're not, like, completely comfortable or open with each other. Whereas Irvine is completely open and comfortable with everyone right off the bat.
And we're going to come back to that because that's important for later. But I'm glad you brought that up. So God damn it, I love Irvine. So we're supposed to go to Daling City, which is the capital of Galbadia, and meet General Caraway. I felt like, as much as I love the Brothers Guardian Force, this was one of the few times where I felt like the pacing got fucking destroyed.
Oh yeah, because you have to get that stupid code. You have to leave the city, go into the middle of nowhere, get a code from there. The GF's optional, but why not get it while you're there? Kind of thing, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, that was kind of like a weird sidetracky moment.
Well, and the summon is actually key to getting Squall's Lionheart in Disc 1, because you can refine the Minotaur card to get the adamantines that you need for his weapon. But I felt like this is the first time where the pacing was killed for me, because you go into this maze, and it's like a perspective puzzle. So if you walk in straight and you turn left, you have to go straight, or you're taking turns. Or if you take a right, you might actually be going straight. Like, it's...
Yeah, you're talking about the tomb?
Yeah, the Tomb of the Unknown King. Yeah.
Yeah, so what I always do, and I've never needed the map or anything, is I always just stick to the right wall and do a circle around the whole thing. Because if you're always turning right, you know where you are all the time, because you're always on the outside. So that's what I do, because you end up doing a lap pretty much anyways to open everything up. So I've always done that. It's never steered me wrong.
What really bothers me about it, too, is that, like, the number is randomly generated.
Yeah, so you can't even look it up.
Yeah, you can't even look it up. So if me and you were
playing...
Or write
it down for the next time you played.
Right. So if me and you were playing at the same time, the same game, everything, your number's going to be different than mine. So I can't even like message you and say, hey, the number's this. Yeah. What really bothers me about it is that they send you all that fucking way to go get it, and it's literally 2 screens in and you're done.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you don't think to explore the dungeon...
Because you're not even in the dungeon all the way.
No, you're like 2 screens up.
Entrance, yeah.
And so if you don't think to explore this, you're going to miss the Brothers GF, you're going to miss some items, and you're going to leave and go to General Caraway's mansion, and it was like, what the fuck was the point of that?
Yeah.
You know? And I like the Tomb of the Unknown King, but I hate
when it is
and how short it is. And, you know, it's almost, if you're going for a completionist run where you get all the Guardian forces, you know, I highly recommend doing all of it. And Brothers is a great GF. But not necessary. But yeah, I just really did not like the pacing of it at all.
No, I think they could have done that maybe in between the desert prison and the missile base, and I think it would have been a little bit better. Like, put it in between somehow.
Yeah.
Like, if they would have relocated it to that desert and stuff, I think it would have suited everything a little bit better, maybe. But
I could see that. Or making it part of Daling City, where you had to go and find it in, like, I don't know, underground or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or like on the outskirts of the city, there's like an old tomb or something.
Right, exactly. Yeah, but instead of having to walk for fucking ever, run through
you could take a car.
Right.
The cars were so weird in that game, and I like never used them.
It's like me neither.
It's like the developers like were trying to make it this cool big deal, but then like there's no point in ever using them.
See, especially the great thing,
the chocobo.
And I meant to talk about this earlier, but the great thing about the remastered version is the 3x speed, the no encounters, and the God mode. And they are a quality of life improvement that, if you're going to play this game, I highly recommend you play with those things available to you, because holy shit are they a game changer.
Especially the no encounter, because
traveling
of how the game works.
is so much faster. It's so much safer. If you're trying to do a low level run, it's much better to do with no encounters
in this game.
Which you pretty much like. I think no encounters in this game is the best game to have it in.
Yeah, and you can get it from Diablos can learn it.
Yep, but it takes a while.
Yeah, it does take a while.
And you actually have to get in.
I think AP, isn't it?
No,
like it's a high.
None of them are that high. It's like maybe 150 or something like that.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so I think the quality and life improvements really helped with the Tomb of the Unknown King. So I highly recommend the remastered version if you don't care that the character models are a little bit out of place.
I like the new character models, honestly.
Yeah, they're not bad. They look a little Kingdom Heartsy.
I didn't like the Final Fantasy X new character models at all.
I didn't either.
Super weird. They don't suit the...
They do look super weird. So, yeah, it's... I don't know. But not to harp on this too much. We complete the mission, and then we go back to General Caraway, and we find out that this is Rinoa's house.
Yeah.
Like, this is Rinoa's dad. And this is where, the whole Rinoa kind of tells us a little bit about her past, but not a whole lot.
Yeah. Also, in Galbadia, they were told that they had to assassinate the sorceress.
Right. Same. They had to assassinate her. So they're going to split into two teams, and the gate team. Basically, the plan is there's a parade going on in the sorceress's honor. They're going to wait until she gets to the archway. They're going to close the gates, and then Irvine's going to take the shot and kill her.
Yeah, he's getting up into like a tower so that he's got a good vantage point. Yeah.
This plan makes a lot of sense, but there's some weird technical things that I don't know if you noticed, but I'm going to point them out when we get to that part. But so the gist is that they're going to kill the sorceress, and if things go wrong, they're going to do a full frontal assault. The one team is Squall and Irvine, who is the sniper team, and then the gate team is Quistis, Selphie, and Zell. They're going to assassinate the sorceress during the parade, but Rinoa is not to be involved. General Caraway does not want her involved.
Yeah, he tries to lock her in that room.
But
then she locks all of them in that room.
Right, on accident. But what's funny about this is the door is on a timer, so Rinoa could have left anytime she wanted.
Yeah.
And it's this is another way they killed the pacing. Because then you had to go through the sewers. Then you had to go
Didn't you have to go through the sewers and back or something? I can't remember.
No, you went through the sewers, and you then from the sewers you got into the gate, and then the gate lowered and all that. But the sewers, I got lost in there because I didn't know.
Suck ass. And
dude,
there's
they're
a lot
so
of items
bad.
that are like super missable items that you like really want to get in there too.
I didn't like the fact that like you had to ride the little like weird
water mill,
the water wheel things. Yeah. And if you didn't know that, like I had a hard time remembering that that's what I had to do.
Right.
So I really didn't like how they...
And you have to go to the end of every hallway to see if the gate opens or if it's like a not even a gate at all kind of thing half the time.
And I hated it too.
Are the worst in like every JRPG.
Yeah,
though,
pretty much. Except for 7, where it was 2 screens.
I don't even remember. Oh, I don't even remember the sewers in 7.
Yeah, because they're so short. It's where you fight Abzu.
Oh, I don't remember that.
The water monster with the chains.
Is that like when you come back to Midgar?
No, that's in the first disc.
Oh, okay.
It's right before the train graveyard.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I always just thought of that as like a subway system or something.
So what bothers me about this scene is that they go back because Quistis is upset because she was mean to Rinoa.
Yeah, that's so fucking dumb.
And it's so stupid because these guys are fucking highly military trained.
They're at the peak of the end of their mission that they, you know what I mean?
I mean, this is it. Like in mere moments, they're going to be assassinating the sorceress, and they're like, oh, we were
I think
really...
I might have hurt her feelings.
Yeah. They're like, ooh, I hurt her feelings, you know. It's like, God damn it, no. And this is the kind of mistakes they make throughout the game that frustrate me.
Yeah.
Because I'm like...
It just makes no sense.
It's adding drama for the sake of adding drama for no reason. And this is where I have to critique the writing or the direction of the game, because stuff like this is annoying for the sake of, oh, we have to add drama. Oh, are they going to make it to the gate? Are they not going to make it to the gate? Is the plan going to go through? Like, they just do all this dumb shit for no reason.
Yeah. It just doesn't fit.
You're right, it doesn't.
And then Rinoa, she's got her, like, she got that thing from Odin, right?
Yeah.
That she wants to give the sorceress because it can, like, stop a sorceress's powers or something.
Right. Yeah, it like suppresses them or
suppresses them. Yeah,
weakens
so she's
them
like
or something.
Sneaking kind of behind the stage and trying to get to Edea, and she kind of fucks up the plan a little bit too, right?
Yeah, she gets caught.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing too. Like, that was the reason why Quistis was mean to her, because Rinoa's like, oh, I've got this item that'll suppress the sorceress. But then they're like, oh, well, that's a dumb plan.
Yeah.
Like, they're like talking shit to her and telling her, like, no, this is the plan. This is what we're going to do. And she just goes on her own anyway, which we knew she was going to do.
Yeah, she's just like that too.
Then they go back because they're mean to her. Like,
yeah.
You were trying to protect her, but now you're like gonna possibly ruin your own major plan.
Mission. The entire mission. Yeah.
It just bothers me.
It's dumb, yeah.
Yeah. So,
well, and then when Edea is giving her speech, Squall and Irvine are in the crowd, right?
Right.
And they see Rinoa up there, because Rinoa is like basically in a trance, right?
Right.
She's like all fucked up. And then the best is when they the sorceress like kills the president and the crowd just cheers.
Yeah.
And it's like, I feel like this is gonna sound a little fucked up maybe, but I feel like nowadays the way the world is now, like, it kind of makes sense. Like, I could see that happening nowadays. Like, how much we despise our like government leaders nowadays compared to when that game was made. It, like, back then it was like, why would they do this? But nowadays I feel like we're so like oppressed by our like government leaders and stuff, and they're like, there's such like a gap between like a government leader, a government official, and like a regular person now, whereas like in the 90s it wasn't really like that to that degree. It didn't seem like, anyways.
So I want to pose a thought to you about that, though. These are FMVs that are being played in the background while she's talking, right?
Right.
And she is, and keep in mind, this is also a game from Japan, so her saying some of the things that she says in English are a little bit more alluded to in Japanese. They're not straight up like, oh, you guys are worms, I'll step on you, you know what I mean? Like, her way of speaking...
Think of all the simps in the crowd that are thinking, "Step on me, mommy," and she's saying,
"Fuck, I'd let her." Goddamn.
And then they're like, "Yes."
Also, they're doing the Thriller. If you didn't notice, in the
in the FMV thing,
yeah. So, anyway, she gets on stage. Rinoa is up there with her, and she's like, "Oh, all you guys have oppressed sorceresses for years, and you guys are going to be..." She just talking shit to the crowd, right?
Yeah, and they're loving it.
And I've seen a lot of people say like, oh, she's mind controlling the crowd, but I don't think that's it. I legit think that they made that FMV and they didn't want to go back and fix it because they'd already spent all the money on it, so they just kept it in the scene.
Yeah, well, it could just be a different translation too, right?
Because even after she kills the president, they are still dancing. Like, to me, I think it's a coincidence. I think it's an FMV that they didn't want to fix.
Could be,
and they just left it in there. I don't think there's enough to like really read too much into it.
But think of think of Estar. Like, Estar was the most powerful nation in the world because their leader was a sorceress. So it could be part of that too, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that's true. It's crazy too, though, because like the president steps in and is like, "Hey, what are you doing? Like, this wasn't part of the plan," and she just like
Get
bloop,
fucked. Yeah.
and dies and just crumples him right there. And then she's like, "Oh, the end of this celebration is going to be with a sacrifice or whatever," and she like animates these giant. I think they're called iguanodons.
Yeah, well, I think they're like gargoyles, but they look like iguanas, basically.
Right. This is where you get carbuncle if you draw it.
Another fucking
another bolt.
Yeah,
another remissible GF.
I remember because like I didn't know what carbuncle was, right?
Yeah.
And then the big boss fight, the final boss of Disc 1 happens soon. I just remember using carbuncle, and I was like, "What the fuck did that do?" I was like, "This is the shittiest," and I never used carbuncle ever again after that.
Yeah. So, it's funny because like we save Rinoa, we get carbuncle if you draw it from her, and then they're gonna go ahead and continue the plan. Like they go to the little carousel thing, and the parade starts. You know, everybody's dancing, the procession's going on. Did you notice
on like her float thing or whatever?
Did you notice that there's no possible way that Irvine could have made that shot?
Why?
Because the parade starts underneath where Squall and Irvine are posted.
Right, but the gate's like away from that.
She's moving away from them.
Oh yeah, they'd shoot the back of the car. So there's like a big wall behind her.
Yeah. So there's no way Irvine could have actually made that shot to kill her.
Yeah, because they're driving this way. She's driving this way. There's like a big wall throne kind of thing behind her. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And the other thing is, when the shot is taken, it's from the front.
Yeah, so it makes no fucking sense at all.
None at all. But, so...
And it's like, remember that movie where they can, like, bend bullets by, like, shooting?
Oh, yeah. I can't think of what that movie's called, but I know it Wanted is that movie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no possible way they can make that shot.
But Irvin can do it. He does it.
Yeah, Irvin can do it. So she gets to the gate, and we realize that Seifer is with her. So he's not dead like we thought, which is kind of like a big reveal, but they also don't really do much with it. Like, you fight him, but it's not until the prison that they really do something with it.
Yeah.
But, so the gate closes. Irvine panics. What?
He's having like an anxiety attack, basically.
We talked about this before, but I want to know what your impression was when this first happened.
The first time, I was like, I just thought he was like one of those guys that just choke in the moment.
Like, so you didn't put anything together here at this point in time?
No, not at all. I don't know how you could.
Well, you couldn't, but did it occur to you later in the game why he may have acted that way?
No, not until recently did I think of that.
Okay, so I should probably save it for later, but I'm going to bring it up now. I think the reason why he had a panic attack at first, and not just because it was a pressure situation, but because he's the only one who actually remembers their past.
Yeah, but the first time I played it, like, there's no way you would know that, right?
Right, there's no way you would put that together at first, but if you were to, like, recall that scene while that's all going on, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, doesn't want to shoot his matron, like the person that raised them as children, right?
Right.
He knows. He's the one that still has his memories, the others don't. And that goes back to when I said, like, he's comfortable with all of them, right? Right out of the gate, because he remembers growing up with all these people under Edea. Edea basically raised them all at the orphanage.
Right. And so I didn't like this scene at first, I'll be honest. when I played this the first time, I was like, here's
I
this
didn't either
guy.
because I liked him. And then it was like, it kind of made him up to be a bitch, right?
A little bit, yeah. And then once I played it, I realized like, oh, okay, you know. But I didn't like this scene at first because it looked visually really cool.
Yeah.
But at the same
he
time,
did make
like
the shot though, honestly. She just put up a barrier.
He did, but I think the idea behind it is that because he hesitated,
she caught on to them and put the barrier up.
Right. And I think the other thing that I have a problem with this plan is like, okay, assassinate the sorceress, and military-wise, they do a smart thing in closing the gates so she can't escape.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time,
that would trigger her to put a force field up, right?
Right, but
she knows she's in danger.
Their biggest advantage in this whole situation is the element of surprise.
Yeah.
She does not know this plan is in action. Right? She knows nothing. Even when
then when those gates shut, then she knows she's in danger.
Right. So, even with Rinoa doing what she did, Edea did not know that there was an assassination attempt coming. And so, it kind of, like, it just kind of is another thing in this game where they kind of just don't...
bad writing at that point.
They don't think things through.
Yeah. They honestly would have been better off sniping her from the gate tower when she was on the podium.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right, exactly. Like, keep her distracted, take the shot, take her out. But they didn't do that. And I almost wonder if, like...
It's like dramatic effect, kind of.
That, and they needed a reason for the party to split up. Yeah,
that's true.
And it bothers me, too, because General Caraway is a goddamn general. Like, you would think his plans are going to be semi-flawless, right?
Yeah.
And
the plans are in his city, too. So it's not like he's dealing with, like, these blueprints of a city. Like, he knows his city.
He would know the layout and where they would need to be, and yet his plan is so flawed.
Yeah.
It's almost like the party came up with it.
Yeah.
You know? So anyway, Irvine misses the shot. Squall jumps into a car and takes off and makes his way to the gate, gets on the float, and fights Seifer. You beat Seifer, and this is such a weird spot for me, because this is the very end of Disc 1, and Squall gets hit with that icicle.
Right through the chest.
Right through the chest.
Or Blizzaga at the time, probably.
And he wakes up, and he has no scar. He has no wound.
Yeah, that part was weird. But
Nothing.
I mean, I don't know. I think that's when you get into like video game logic. Like in battle, you're cutting Seifer in half. Like your sword's going through him. So I think you got to put that in. But
I would agree with that if they didn't mention it.
Oh, did they mention it?
Yes, Squall's literally like, I don't have a mark. What's wrong? And I think this is why...
And then they never address that either,
right?
After he mentions it.
I think that's why a lot of people think that Squall is dead.
Could be, that whole, like, theory thing.
Because Squall would be like, he'd be damaged, he'd be bloody. Like, why is he not bleeding? Why does he not have a scar at least? Like,
yeah.
And I think a lot of people took that as like, okay, the second half of the game, Squall's dead. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why that doesn't hold weight, but it is it's one of probably the biggest theories of this game besides Rinoa's ultimecia.
Yeah.
But we end this one.
The creators have come out and said neither of those is true, though.
I think they said about the ultimecia one that if they were to go back and do it again,
they would have made it like that because it's a good idea or something like that.
Well, not that they would have made it like that, but that they would consider making that the case.
Yeah.
If they wanted to, like, in a remake or something.
Yeah.
So we end Disc 1. And this is where we get our next Laguna dream.
Oh, right. Disc 2 starts in Windhill, right?
Yes. It starts in Windhill with Laguna and who we find out is alone.
Yeah. The little girl.
So it's revealed that he's been out of the military for a year, and since he never came home from the war, Julia and him never ended up together, and Rinoa was born between Julia and General Caraway. Laguna was in Rain's care for 6 months, and he decided to stay with her and alone and protect their home from monsters. Another reason why he did this was because the Astarian sorceress Adele, who we'll meet later, was kidnapping young girls looking for a successor, and Alone being one of her targets. I
forgot about that part.
Yeah. She was after Alone even before anyone realized.
How did she know about Alone?
So it wasn't that she knew about Alone. They were looking for a successor for her. And so they were.
Oh, so it wasn't even that she knew Alone had these powers.
Right.
They were just looking for a kid to succeed the sorceress.
She did find out later, which is why Alone becomes so important to everybody's plans. But
yeah, okay.
She just happened to be a little girl at that time, and the sorceress was kidnapping little girls looking for a successor. But something interesting happens here because he meets up with Kyros again, and Kyros specifically mentions Ward, and that Ward is a janitor in the D District prison.
Yeah.
So it's kind of setting up what's about to happen, which is another example.
The main cast, yeah.
Yeah, like I said earlier, this is what I think the game does really well. It sets up the next part of the game.
The very next part.
With what is happening in this scene.
Yeah.
And they do this throughout the entire game, and I think this is one of the strong points of Final Fantasy VIII, is that each moment is important sequentially.
Yeah.
But this is the point where, Kyros is like, how's your life been? What have you been up to? And Laguna kind of fills him in like, Rain took care of me. I decided to stay and protect the town to pay them back. And
yeah, this is where it's nice. It's nice that Kyros is there visiting, because that's how you find out like Laguna's story from where we last left off till now.
Well, and it's kind of a slice of life thing, right? Like,
yeah,
we realize that Laguna is out of the military. He's no longer part of that life. And even though he loved Rain, or he loved Julia, he now knows that life is over. And so he just never makes it back to Galbadia, and goes and sees her. And I want to say they reveal that she died also.
Julia?
Yeah, in this scene.
Yeah, I think so. They definitely mentioned that she never met the person she wrote the song about again. I do remember them saying
right. Yeah, Rain brings it up. Rain doesn't know, and I don't think Laguna knows either.
Rain would be oblivious to it, even if she told it to him, probably.
Unless he remembered that she had told him that she inspired him, but they don't really bring that up again, I don't think.
Yeah.
But Rain mentions the song "Eyes on Me," and she says, "Oh, that song was written by Julia for a man she met that went off to war but never came home."
Yeah,
and so she married General Caraway and had a daughter, which is Rinoa, and then later she passed away. Now, if you go into the menu and look her up, it actually does say that she died at age 28 in a car crash or something like that.
Really?
Yeah, I believe so. I think it was a car crash, if I remember right. But yeah, she died, and that's why, Caraway just has Rinoa by himself.
Explains why he's extra protective of her too, right?
Right. So it's one of those things where they did a really good job of connecting Julia and Laguna and saying okay, we need you to know that this relationship never materialized.
Yeah.
Rain and Laguna are now together. And he
has no interest and well, he can't because she's dead. But I mean, he doesn't really have interest in going back to
right
for Julia. Or
he doesn't.
the
Yeah, he
there.
doesn't have any like
desire or reason.
Right, he doesn't have any reason to go back to Galbadia.
Yeah,
because his military life's over. So he is.
In fact, he'd probably get charged for going AWOL. Honestly,
right?
Isn't that like a thing? Like,
yeah, I would. I mean, it's possible. Yeah. Although I think there are Galbadian soldiers in Windhill that he talks to, if I remember right.
Oh, I can't remember.
So they would know.
Has it been established at this point that he writes for Timber Maniacs?
No, actually, I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot about this. Kyros brings it up to him and says, "Hey, I know you want to travel the world or whatever, but you have a really good thing going with Rain and Alone. But if you ever decide to, there is a company called the Timber Maniacs
looking for writers
that is looking for writers and photographers and freelancers to submit articles." And he's like, I know that's something you've always wanted to do, so if you ever decide to leave this town, think about it, and you can travel the world and do that. And it's really cool because if you pick up the Timber Maniacs articles...
way earlier when you're in Timber.
Yeah, if you pick up all of the ones throughout the game, you can kind of piece together how Laguna's life went after he left Windhill, and it's really, really cool.
This game actually has a lot of different like magazines that you can kind of follow, and the other one is like that. It's almost like a lore magazine. Like, what is it called? Do you remember what it's called? That other one where it's like they're always talking about like monsters and paranormal shit.
I don't remember that one.
And that's where you learn about, remember that UFO you can encounter, and and that's how you learn about like Doom Train and like all this stuff. Like there's like these hidden magazines all over the game. Some of them are pet pals or whatever.
Yeah, the one that gives you Angelo
new abilities. And then the way the weapons work, you can't just go to a weapon shop in Final Fantasy VIII. You have to pick up these weapons monthly or whatever, and then it tells you the recipes to craft all the weapons.
There's one for
so many
Zell's Limit Breaks.
Yeah, right. Martial art. I can't remember what his is called. It's like a martial arts magazine.
It's like fighting something or other.
Yeah. So there's all these magazines. So you're always kind of keeping your eyes peeled for them. And then some of them involve lore and some of them involve like upgrading your characters and their abilities and stuff like that. And I thought that was kind of cool because it fits with that world too, right? Like it's a more modern world where like you would like, oh, let's get, especially like in like the 90s when it came out, people would have like magazine subscriptions like to everything, right? Like, because that's how you inform yourself. You couldn't just go to the internet and subscribe to a website or a YouTube channel or something,
or a podcast like. So the other thing too is like, we don't know yet that this is in the past.
Correct, yeah.
But there's
we kind of now know at this point because of Alone and her age,
sort of. But I don't think we know that the girl that we're seeing occasionally is Alone yet. I think, if I remember right,
I don't know if we know the adult woman's name.
Right. Yeah. So the hints that they give you that this is in the past is that the Sorceress War, which happened, 17 years ago or so, something like that,
is happening.
Was
basically
was Adele, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that the Sorceress War is still going on, is the key that we know this is in the past. But if you don't think about it, this is another way that the game doesn't properly let you know that you're in the past. But I think that's kind of on purpose.
And this is where it starts to kind of come together.
They kind of drip feed you what they want you to know, and then they kind of let you put together the pieces, which I think in this instance is one of the few times where I don't mind that Kitase and
that bit of mystery there. Yeah.
Right.
Because you are going to find out eventually.
Exactly.
Whereas a lot of the other time you do find out, but it's like some shitty way.
Right.
One thing I've always thought of is like, because they always do, like, not always, but after 10 Final Fantasy 10, they start doing like sequels and prequels to everything. And I always thought that Final Fantasy 8 would have always been the best one to do a prequel of, because of how much everyone loves Laguna. Like, I think telling Laguna's full story would have been a really good like prequel to do. But at the same time, it's kind of weird because the guys that made 8 are the guys that made like 7 remake and kind of like butchered it in our opinions, right?
Right.
And made Crisis Core. Like, I like Crisis Core, but there is some dumb shit in Crisis Core. So I feel like it's weird because I would like them to do a prequel, but I wouldn't want, in this case, the original creators of 8 to work on the prequel.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I feel what
because I
you
know
mean.
they'd fuck it up. It wouldn't fit with the canon, because they did that with Crisis Core. They fucked up the canon with Crisis Core. They fucked with the canon with everything. Right? They can't keep their like facts straight, basically.
Yeah, and the thing is that I feel like they would have a lot to work with because of how much of the Laguna stuff was cut. Because they've openly admitted that they cut a lot of Laguna stuff.
Well, yeah. How does Adel end up fucking in space strapped into that coffin? Like, that, the final battle would have to be getting Adel to that point. You know what I mean? Like, it would be good, because there's so many like good fact evidence based parts that lead into each other, but those gaps need filling so badly at the same time.
The next section is a big hint at everything, and I did not fucking notice this in my playthrough, my first playthrough. This last playthrough, I for sure noticed it. Squall wakes up in the D District prison, which is the worst fucking part of this game.
Part of the whole game, yeah.
Fucking worst part. And he is being tortured, and everybody can hear his screams. This is how fucked this part of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, this part of the game, for as much as I hate it, is super fucked, and I love the story of it.
Yeah, I think if the prison was just designed different, it would have not been so goddamn bad.
Right. If it hadn't been a fucking copy-paste on every floor, I would have not had a problem with
literally running in a circle copy-pasta, like 6 floors down, and then like 12 floors back up. It's fucking awful.
Fucking horrible. But this is where the game gets really dark. And I feel like Squall is being used as kind of like a messiah figure here.
Well, I mean, he's even being like almost crucified on the wall.
He is. He is pinned to this wall, being electrocuted in a cross pattern.
Yeah, yeah.
And so Seifer is torturing him, and everyone can hear it. The party can hear screams. They don't realize that it's... I don't think they realize that it's Squall being tortured, but they can hear it. They're like, what is that?
Yeah. They're locked up. They don't have any of their weapons. And all that. They're stuck in their cell. They come up with a little plan.
Yeah, and this is where, like, you start to realize that Edea's memories are not ultimecia's. Like, you would think that she would know the purpose of Seed, but she doesn't.
Yeah.
He's getting tortured. Seifer's like, oh, What's
stupid is Seifer should know.
Seifer doesn't know because... he's not a Seed.
I know, but like...
and they only tell Seeds...
fucking knows.
Not really, though. Because Seeds only receive their orders. Like, even Squall and them didn't know.
That's true.
If you think about it, like, they
until
did not
after
know...
Norg, basically.
Yeah, until after Norg. They had no idea that they were supposed to be trained to kill the sorceress.
Yeah.
So, like... he's getting tortured. Seifer's asking him, what's the purpose of Seed? You know, he's not giving up. He's not giving an answer, but that's because he doesn't know.
Yeah, yeah.
And Seifer doesn't believe him. He's like,
you can feed him bullshit. You can tell him whatever you want to try and get him to stop.
Yeah, because there's a point where the conversation will go differently, and they will stop torturing Squall if you answer a certain way.
Yeah.
So if you lie your way out of it, they will stop torturing you.
They still leave you hanging there, I think, right? You just...
Right, they still leave you hanging.
But they're not electrocuting you. They leave the room.
They get confused. They leave the room or whatever. This is the major hint that I did not realize until this playthrough. The Moombas come in, and they free Squall. But do you know what they say to him?
Don't they call him Laguna all the time?
Yes.
Yeah.
They do nothing but call him Laguna.
Yeah, and it's because he looks like him, right?
And I did not think about that until this playthrough.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it never occurred to me. Because I forgot it. By the time I got to the reveal, it was the furthest thing from my mind because I hated this fucking segment.
Yeah,
but this playthrough, I was looking for these types of things. So I was able to see it this time more so than all the other times that I had played it. And we find out where Moombas originate to later, which is kind of cool also.
Moombas are really good, and I wish they'd bring them back.
Yeah, same.
Other Final Fantasy games. They should be as included, honestly, as Moogles and Chocobos. I believe they're really good. Like a little creature.
They were in 10 as a Lulu's doll
animal. Yeah.
Yeah. So Squall's like, why are you calling me this? Like,
yeah.
How do you know Laguna? Like, why are you calling me this? I hate this section for another reason, and it's because of how fucking dumb of a prison break it is. How fucking inept and stupid are these guards that they're like, that Zell's like, oh, you might want to help.
Biggs and Wedge, isn't it?
No, they do show up, but they're not the ones that they trick.
Oh, okay.
It's literally a guy called Mean Guy is the name of the guy.
Right.
So they trick him and they're like, oh, there's something wrong. I think my friends got bit by a snake in a fucking underground prison.
Hey, it's in the desert though.
True, but still, like this high security prison and a snake got in and just happened to bite the party, like.
Yeah, but that's like an old trope, right? Like,
right,
oh, my friend's not feeling good, so they open the gate, and then you beat them up in this game.
I know.
Kind of thing.
It just fucking annoys me because I hate prison breaks in video games. They're always the worst.
Yeah, they are. Them and sewers are just consistently bad every time.
Yeah, there's no good jail or sewer levels ever.
Yeah.
So Squall gets out. He joins his friends, and
his fucking like entrance where he's just like they're like kind of pinned up against, like they can't escape. Yeah. And then all of a sudden Squall comes like up through the middle of the prison because everything's like a ring, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a big circle.
Yeah.
And the middle's open and Squall comes jumping up and like slashes the guards, and like that part was pretty cool.
Well, and Rinoa comes in.
Rinoa and Irvine, yeah.
Yeah, and she kicks him down the fucking stairs because he's
he tumbles down.
Because she's like, oh.
But he's like blasting at guards and stuff. Like,
yeah,
Irvine.
He's actually super badass in this scene.
Yeah.
But it's just funny because he's like, I was supposed to bring you back to Daling City. Like, we need to go. And she's like, fuck you, and she just kicks him down the stairs.
Right, he was sent to rescue her, right? But not the others. And then she was like, no, we're not leaving unless we have the others, kind of thing.
Right. So, well, and it's because Squall, and I never thought about this until later, but Squall jumps in the car without Rinoa and Irvine to go face Edea. So him, Quistis, Zell, and Selphie were all in the tower, so that's why they all got arrested.
Together.
Right, but Rinoa and Irvine were away, so they didn't get arrested, so that's why they're here now. And I never put that together until this playthrough either. Which makes me wonder if I even fucking paid attention when I played video games back in the day. Because there's so many things I'm seeing now that it didn't.
Yeah, but this is
before.
Also one of those games where everything's fairly like cryptic, and you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Not everything, but a lot of things.
And I thought the FMV sequences in this were so fucking cool.
With the
drill
drilling into the ground and stuff. Yeah, that was super cool. Except I never knew if I made it or not. I'm always like, oh my fucking god, do I have to redo this all?
Same.
Because you're like shimmying across and...
Yeah, that
easily, prison sucked ass.
Easily and the worst.
It wouldn't even be so bad, but you keep going to the bottom, to the top, to the bottom, to the... Like, come on, man. Just fucking let them escape.
Instead of letting you, like, run around the circle, or, like, run through... to the next stair step. They're like, let's put this fucking bullshit
wall.
Yeah, this little bullshit wall in there. They
could clearly jump over too.
Right. Especially since Squall jumped out of the fucking middle of the goddamn...
Yeah, from like the bottom floor to the fucking middle.
Right. So, they get out of the jail, and they witness the Trebia and Balam Garden, they know that the gardens are being targeted by missiles now.
How do they find out? Doesn't somebody like pull up and they're like, oh, like Trebia has been hit by a missile strike or something like that?
No,
I don't remember how they find out.
I don't remember how they find out. That was one of the details that I forgot to write down.
Is it on the radio when they're in the car escaping? When they're driving away, maybe?
It might be. Seifer. I think Seifer tells them, doesn't he?
Oh, maybe.
I think Seifer says something about how Garden has betrayed the sorceress or whatever, so they're... Because Edea is going to use Galbadia Garden as her base. Right. But Balam Garden and Trebia Garden are going to be targeted by missiles because of Squall. I think it's him. So they decide they're going to stop the missiles.
Some are sent back. Some are going to go back to warn Balam, and the rest are going to go to the missile base to try and stop the missiles from being launched.
Yeah, and once they get to the desert, then Trebia Garden gets hit.
Yeah. So you see the missiles launch.
Right, you see them launch, and Selphie knows that's the direction of Trebia Garden.
Yeah.
So she's upset. She knows, and that's why I always sent her.
Yeah, same.
I don't know about you, but I always, any chance I got, whenever they asked you to split the party, I always sent Irvine with Quistis and Selphie. Because I felt like I'm gonna hook my boy up, right? You know?
Yeah. And, I always just sent all the shitty characters to the missile base, like the characters I didn't like, and then I brought the rest of them to...
Right.
Yeah.
So...
there's a big part where you don't have those characters.
Right. So, yeah, you kind of learn that the missile base is going to be firing again. They're going to fire at Balam Garden. And so you split the party. You can choose whoever you want. The dialogue changes a little bit depending on who you send. So if you send Rinoa, later in Fisherman's Horizon, Squall's dialogue will change, and he'll act like he missed her a little bit.
I remember that, because I always send Rinoa, because
I never did.
I don't like her in battle, right? So
yeah, I always send Rinoa with Squall, because I felt like that was the canon choice for me.
Right.
Because even when I was younger, I could tell, that was the direction the game was going, was these two are going to end up together. Yeah. Because even in the opening FMV,
Yeah, they're the two...
The scene where they, fall into each other's arms or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I always sent them together. I did not like the missile base either.
No, same. I hated it. It was very tedious. There was a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of, little shitty... I don't even know if puzzle's the word. There's, a lot of little things you have to do, and you don't even know... There's nothing even telling you if you're doing anything right or wrong.
Like moving the missile launcher into place?
Yeah, the whole thing sucked. There's a series of little mini things, and then as they're escaping, that tank comes and attacks them, and you fight the tank boss, who's pretty hard because, like I said, I always send my shittiest characters to the missile base.
Yeah.
So it's always a really hard boss fight, but you can fuck it up with electric attacks, thankfully. And then the missile base, they beat it, and then they're like, oh my god, we're not going to get out of here in time. And then, the missile base, self-destructs. Because they set it up to self-destruct, don't they?
Yeah. They also... they also do something interesting where they set the error ratio to 100%.
Yeah.
And it still fires the missiles. Like, they don't find a way to stop them.
It just increases like the radius of the target and stuff, right?
Which makes it even harder for Balam Garden to escape. But
really, yeah, because if it was just here when they start moving, they'd be yeah.
But again, it's a plan by a bunch of teenagers, and they don't understand this is what's going to happen. And I think it was weird.
They also don't know that the Balam Garden's going to be able to fly and
right, that too.
Yeah.
Which is almost in the territory of being an asshole.
Yeah, but it's also cool because you learn there's these lower floors and stuff, and then this place used to be a military base. Like Sid kind of spills the beans on all that finally.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get to and he doesn't know really what it was, which is kind of weird because he bought the fucking place. But you get down there and there's all these turbines and everything starts moving, and that part was really cool. And then all of a sudden, that cutscene with the missiles coming and then the garden moving out of the way and the
that was pretty dope.
All that was awesome. And then doesn't it kind of crash into the town of Balam?
No, it crashes into the
Fisherman's Horizon.
Well, yes, but it crashes into the ocean first.
Right.
So once you're done with the missile base, Squall gets to Balam Garden, and students are fighting each other, fucking,
Oh, yeah, that's the whole Norg thing.
Yeah, the garden faculty is like, are you with Sid or are you with Garden Master Norg? And at this point, no one knows who the fuck Norg is. You've never heard of him the entire game, and now all of a sudden there's this person that's supposedly the master of
the garden,
Balam Garden, and you're like, what the fuck? And then you find out Norg funded this. Norg has funded Seed this whole time.
And he's basically this Jabba the Hutt fuck who lives underneath Garden.
Right. And you could tell that he was probably a Jabba the Hutt reference.
Yeah. His boss fight was super annoying the first time I played.
Right.
Because, again, first time I played, I relied on GFs all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so his elements are always changing. But when I went back and replayed it, I just used physical attacks all the time. So he's actually really fucking easy if you just use physical attacks.
Well, and
Can you draw a GF from him? I can't remember if there's a GF or not. Or maybe it's just a really good spell that's good for jumping.
I think so. I know you get bio after the fight. There's a draw point on his pod.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
But I don't remember if he has a GF or not. But the funny thing is his whole thing is that he wants to give Sid's head
to the sorceress.
To the sorceress to make up for what we did.
Right. So that he's in the clear, Garden's in the clear then.
Right. So he can survive.
Yeah.
And then there is, you fight him.
And some of the students you're against too, because they side with him for whatever reason.
Right. Well, I think it's because they're is Sid who we really thought he was?
He never said any of this. Yeah, they feel a little betrayed by him, maybe.
Yeah, I would say a little bit. Or maybe they were fighting because they thought that the sorceress was going to kill them, so they would rather be on the sorceress's side,
right?
And
it's not their fault, right? It's the party's fault that there's a target on their backs.
Well, in that divide, yeah.
So
you find out that Garden was funded by Norg. You also find out that it can fly to an extent, it's more of a hover.
It's like a hover.
Yeah.
It was so satisfying killing those Garden Master guys though.
Oh yeah. Well,
getting rid of them.
I think the most satisfying part was the FMV sequence when Garden just barely gets missed.
Yeah.
That sequence is so fucking cool that I sometimes have a hard time believing that some of the FMVs back then were real.
Yeah, they were so good.
Because they're so well
high
done.
Quality. Yeah.
And this is where we find out that Cid and Edea are married.
Yeah.
Because Cid never mentions this, of course.
No.
And this was a thing that Norg let out. Norg's like, damn Cid and his, that damn married couple or something like that. And he says Cid and Edea. And that's like where Squall's like, what the fuck?
I think he even says like Cid and Edea Kramer. Like he even says like their last name and stuff.
I think he does. I don't remember, but I think you're right. And it's like,
you're like, hold on a minute.
This is where they finally start really ramping up that something is going on that we don't know about.
Yeah.
I think this is the turning point in the game where, yes, there have been breadcrumbs, but this is where the first major time where they're like, okay, Cid knows more than he's letting on.
Yeah, and then as the player, your first time through, you're like, okay, so is Cid fucking in on this too? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I remember kind of feeling like that the first time I played.
Yeah, is Cid evil? And we don't know what Norg has told these students either.
Yeah.
Like, did he tell them that Cid and Edea were married?
Yeah,
and now they think that he's in on it?
Yeah.
Or like,
did he set us up? Like, you know what I mean? Like that whole mission that we were sent on, was that a setup? Like, who knows?
Right. Exactly. So it's such a cool scene, and it does have its payoffs. I really enjoy this scene. We crash into the ocean, and we end up crashing into
I remember there's a part where you go to the town of Balam, and Raijin and Fujin, they've like taken over the town basically, and
that's later.
The hotel. That is later.
That's later when you're able to steer Balam Garden. That's when you go back
because that's after the Fisherman.
Yeah,
shortly after Fisherman Horizon.
Because Galbadia Garden is there, and that's why Fujin and Raijin are there.
Right.
Because they've taken over the town, which is another fucking part I hate. Because it kills the pacing, but
isn't there a big fucking like worm boss if you go to where Galbadia Garden was in that crater? If I remember correctly, there's like this big. It's not a boss, but it's a big fucking monster.
I don't remember. I know that you get Pandemona.
Yeah, from drawing it from
Fujin.
Raijin or Fujin. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know about the worm boss. I'd have to look that up. So. Garden breaks down because of lack of maintenance.
Well, and they've never used that technology for how long.
And so it's floating along, and we hit Fisherman's Horizon. But before that, the White Seed ship shows up. And they call themselves Edea's Seeds.
Right.
And that's another clue as to what's going on. Because we meet Alone, and she finally tells us, like, hey,
right, she's in the library or something.
Right, she's in the library, and she finally tells us, like, hey, I'm one
trying to make this happen, and I'm sorry that I got you involved, basically.
She's like, will you please remember me? Is there anything you remember about me? Do you know me? My name's Alone, and Squall just does not know who she is. Like, he has no idea. And
which, again, kind of hints at that whole
Guardian Force thing.
Right?
Yep. And so the White Seed ship...
Could you fucking imagine, in real life, you're talking to, essentially your sibling, and they don't even fucking remember you?
Right. That would be...
So, obviously there's some potency to how much the GF... erases your memories.
Well, and there's also some you realize how much pain Alone really is in, that she was everyone's basically big sister, and none of these people remember her.
Yeah.
And so she has to live her life knowing that everybody that she loves either thinks she's dead or has no idea who she is, and she remembers every single thing.
Yeah.
Which is, it's honestly, this game is a lot sadder than people remember. And I noticed more sad things this playthrough than I had ever remembered before. So I understand where some of this got kind of lost. But the White Seeds show up. They want to take Alone away. And he remembers Squall does remember her because of the dreams, but he doesn't remember who she is. He just knows the name, like, oh, Alone is the girl from Windhill who was in my Laguna dream.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know who she is.
Yeah, on a personal level.
On a personal level, right.
Him. Yeah.
She does tell him that she's the one sending them back, though. She eventually does reveal that. But she won't tell him why. She just says, oh, like,
I'm trying to change the past or something, isn't it?
Well, no, yeah, it is, but she doesn't tell him that.
Oh, okay.
She won't tell him why. But Squall lets her go. The White Seeds take her away. And then after this is when we crash into Fisherman's Horizon, and we hear one of the best songs in the entire game.
Yeah, it's my second favorite song, the Fisherman Horizon theme.
And I think the reason why that song works so well, and I'm going to parrot some things that Mike from Resident Arc said in their podcast. It's one of those songs that is kind of like, it's almost depressing.
It fits the mood,
but it's also equal parts
like uplifting.
Uplifting.
Yeah.
It's like they're waging war against each other. But if you listen to the song, it's very calm. It's very calming.
But that's kind of suits the village, because they're very welcoming, despite the fact that this giant airship basically smashed into their community and wrecked a bunch of shit. They're still they want them to leave, but they want to make sure everyone's okay. And
they're hospitable, but they don't like conflict.
Yeah.
And I think that song also kind of, it makes you feel that a little bit. I just feel like Uematsu's work is so good at evoking the emotions that the scene is trying to set up. I always feel very
sad when I hear that song.
And that's kind of its purpose.
Yeah, it's sad, but it's sad but calming, if that makes sense.
Oh no, I get it. That's exactly where I'm coming from on it.
Yeah.
But I agree with Mike on that. I think that it's a very depressing song, but at the same time it balances it by being an uplifting song at the same time, and they're on even playing fields.
I think uplifting is the wrong thing. It's calming, because it's like the calm after the storm, but also you're dealing with the repercussions of the storm. The storm happened, the damage is done, but for right now, let's catch our breath. The storm is over, kind of thing.
Right, and I think, too, we talked about certain things breaking the pacing. I think Fisherman's Horizon is the best way this game breaks pacing.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's so good. I love this, even though it is a bit of a slog at times.
It's a bit of a slog, and it does go by, it's weird, because it's a bit of a slog, but it also goes by really quick.
Yeah, it's so weird.
I don't know how to even explain that, because it doesn't make sense what I just said, but that's how it is.
But if you play it, it makes sense. I know what you're saying, because I just recently played it.
Yeah, it's like a blink. It's like a blink of the game, but it's also it's because it slows everything down for a moment.
Right.
But only a moment.
And it's also there's a moral dilemma here too, because the mayor comes in and he says, we're not
pacifists, basically, right?
Right, they're pacifists. Yeah, we're not looking for conflict, and we want you to leave because we know you're
going to be in trouble.
You are trouble. We want you to be safe, but we also don't agree with you and your policies, because you invite war, you invite fighting, and we are not about that, and we want you to leave.
And the garden and everyone understands that. They're like, yes, we'll do everything we can help your town. We'll do whatever we can to get out of here, so no harm comes to you guys. But then when Galbadia basically, it's not even a Galbadia, it's that fucking tank, isn't it?
No, it's Galbadia.
They do find him?
Yeah, they show up. Well, and when they do show up, the mayor is like, I'm going to go reason with them. And he tells, like, Squall, like, there is no situation where you cannot talk your way out of.
Yeah.
And Squall kind of tells him, like, hey,
these guys aren't to be fucked with.
What do you do when someone you are trying to calm down is beyond that point? Because Galbadia is not going to back down.
And they're always the aggressor.
And Squall knows that. He knows that the mayor is it's a futile effort. But he's like, what do you do when talking will not work? And the mayor does not want to hear that. And so you kind of have this moral dilemma where, like, these people are helping you out, but to protect them, you have to fight.
Yeah.
And the mayor does not agree with you. So it's like you're
breaking their morals, but you have to do that in order to protect them.
Right. And the thing is, I applaud the mayor in this scene, and I think his writing is some of the best in the game because he's willing to die
for peace.
To see his town or his city or whatever you want to call them, his community hold on to their values.
Yeah.
He would rather die than lose what makes the town what the town is.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think you can applaud him for that in ways, but I think eventually he needs to realize too that Squall is right and that Galbadia is not going to let them live if they do not cooperate.
Yeah. And even if they do cooperate, they're going to fuck them over in some way.
Right. So it's like, I like Fisherman's Horizon because every single part of it is like yin and yang.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's like, clashing, but also supporting each other kind of thing.
Right. It's like, there's a little bit
like
of this.
Unwanted support, though.
Well, it's like, you know how yin and yang is, like, it's black with white
in it.
And white with black in it. And there's a little bit of each in the other. Yeah. And so you have to have that balance. And I think that's what Fisherman's Horizon really signifies, is that balance. You know, Squall's aggressiveness as to the mayor's non-aggressiveness. The music is depressing but calming.
Yeah.
You know, everything that Fisherman's Horizon, from the music to the story to everything, is a balance.
Yeah.
And so I really like the thematic elements in Fisherman's Horizon a lot. The other thing is, like, after this, this is where the party comes back together and really, you know, like I said earlier, if you have Rinoa come back from the missile launch, Squall kind of has a little bit of a moment where
a moment of weakness, if you call it, right?
Right.
Like to him, he would consider that
an emotional softness that he's not accustomed to. And so, I mean, that's kind of why I like this game too, is because depending on your choices changes certain things. Now, it doesn't change how it all plays out, but it does change how you see certain scenes. And I think it's cool that you can kind of evolve Squall at your discretion. You know, so I love Fisherman's Horizon. I love when you come back here, especially Irvine during that segment. But yeah, Galbadia comes in. They want to know where Alone is. The mayor doesn't, want to let them be there. Blah, blah, blah. The party comes back.
They go to save him, and then that tank shows up, and they're like, oh no. And then you start fighting the tank.
Yep.
And then it turns out that the people in the missile base hid in the tank during the explosion in order to survive the explosion.
And Squall actually knocks the tank off the side, and then the party has to, like, climb up.
Right.
To get back onto the platform, and then he's like, oh, hey,
Yeah, and then they're all reunited. I thought the that whole, like, concert part was dumb, though. I did not like that. That was stupid.
I didn't like it the first playthrough. I liked it this time. Because you can have them play Eyes on Me.
I've never had them play anything coherent at all.
Yeah,
Like, it's just a fucking mishmash of shit.
and the date scene changes. So we'll talk little bit about this when we come back to Fisherman's Horizon again. But basically, if you choose certain pieces of music or whatever,
everybody gets an instrument,
right,
and everybody gets a piece, right?
Rinoa, her interaction with Squall will change. So if you do Eyes on Me, she argues with Squall.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she chews his ass and is like, why are you like this? Why are you being this way? Why won't you let anybody in? Like, she goes full fucking bore on him and is like, you need to open up. You need to be people's friends. You need to stop this. And he just kind of blows her off a little bit, but I think I don't think it's explicitly said, but I think he kind of agrees with her.
Internally,
but he doesn't want to show it because he's spent his whole life protecting himself from getting attached. But it's funny because he doesn't know why.
Yeah, he wouldn't. But that like emotional trauma would be there, right? And it'd be just buried.
Yeah, it's buried emotional trauma, and he just doesn't know why.
Yeah.
And so...
But he also doesn't question it, because as far as he knows, that's just how he is. That's just who he is, right?
And that's another contrast with Laguna. You know, Laguna would sacrifice his own well-being, even if it meant himself getting hurt emotionally and physically, for others. And Squall, to this point, is not like that yet. So, I think this is a good place to end it. We ended it on a very good discussion on Fisherman's Horizon. We're already 2 hours and 20 minutes into this, plus what we recorded earlier. So, I think this is a good place to end it. I think we're going to come back when Squall officially takes over command of Garden. And I think we can probably get through the rest of the game in the next episode, but I think we're going to have to make this a 3-parter. So, do you have anything to add to anything that we've talked about up to this point, up to the first time we go to Fisherman's Horizon?
Really, I don't think. Like, I always thought it was like weird. Like, what is Fisherman's Horizon? I always thought that was weird because it's like, it looks like a bunch of junk that's just like pooled up that they just like built homes on. Because it looks like there's like a big like satellite or like a solar panel satellite thing, but then there's like also like railway going through it, and there's like all these like docks and a crane. Like, it seems like it was almost like an old like construction site or something. Like,
so I think if I remember right, the people from Fisherman's Horizon are from Esthar. And
that would make sense because it connects, right?
And they're all engineers. And they are self-sufficient. They're engineers. They're there to... These are probably people that either left Esthar during the Sorceress War or shortly after it ended.
Right.
And I want to say that, yeah, they're from Esthar. They're engineers. They live here because the railway is shut down. Like, the railway doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work, no.
So I would say that I think that's what happened because it's right next to Esthar.
Does it ever say it though?
I think it does. I want to say they do in a certain scene in the game, but I don't remember where it is or when it is.
Because it would make sense. Like, I think if they were to leave, it would have been during because of their pacifistic nature, right? Like, if you're gonna leave a country that's like declaring war on other places, that would make sense that you're all pacifists, right?
Well,
like,
but at the same time, like, would they be allowed to leave, or would Adele have, like, forced them to work since they were engineers?
Maybe, yeah. Or they saw what they made when they were engineers during the war and then left. But you wouldn't want to leave after because Laguna would be the president then. You know what I mean? And Laguna's like
yeah.
It'd be like that'd be like a good change for Esthar.
But then again, they might think like, oh, if war ever breaks out again,
we don't.
I'm not sure. I'll have to do some research. Maybe I'll do some research and we'll kind of if I find anything on it, I will bring it up at the beginning of next podcast episode. But anyway, I think we're gonna end it there. Thank you guys for watching or listening on whatever platform of choice you're on, whether it be Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, or my YouTube channel. And, this was episode 2. I'm excited to get this out. I'm excited for episode 3 to finish off the game. I think we can really pull that off. I don't think we're going to need a 4th episode.
No, I don't think so at all. Because, there's not a lot of, there's a couple big events, but they're shorter big events,
right?
Leading up, and then the ending sequence, basically.
So, and I think the next episode is going to be the big episode too, because this is where the plot twist is. This is where the ending is. This is
Galbadia. My favorite part of the whole game is when Galbadia versus Balam Garden, that whole clash. That is the best part of that whole.
There's
game.
A lot of big moments coming and a lot of payoffs that are going to come from the things that we've talked about already. So, anyway, guys, we'll catch you in the next one. Thank you for listening. We appreciate it. Don't forget to like and share and rate the podcast on all platforms. I am your co-host, Alex, a.k.a. Soldier First Class.
I'm Corey, a.k.a. Dookie03.
And this has been episode 9, a.k.a. episode 2 of the Final Fantasy VIII podcast, part 2. And that's it.
Have a good one, guys.
Yep. Later.